You ready? Okay, all right, cool. All right. Good afternoon. How y'all doing? It's good to see y'all's faces. My name is Nathaniel Alphonse Joseph Landry. So I gave y'all my whole government name. So and my father is Nathaniel Landry. So I'm not a junior because my dad doesn't have any middle names. But we're both alumni of Southern University's art department. First off, I'd like to, get some things out the way. Really want to give a shout out to Sam for having this alumni show and keeping it going. Former professor Robert Cox started it in, I wanted to say, when did I move back? In 2008. In 2008, I think we had the first alumni art show here in this department. And just being back in this room brings back a lot of memories. I spent a lot of time in this gallery helping set up shows. This is where I had my first art show as a sophomore in the student show. I can tell you right now, it was a real moving experience because that was the first time that my late grandmother had ever had a chance to see my work hung up on the wall. And that was one of the things that I wanted to accomplish before she passed. And she got to see that. I'm going to start off pretty much and tell you guys you're in a very, very special, but also a very, very sacred space. I don't know if any of you, all of you are artists or all right, don't be zombies now. Come on, talk to me now. Talk to me now. Talk to me. Anybody? Who? All right, raise your hand. If you're an artist, raise your hand. All right. If you're, yeah, man. Hold on. Now we can't be like this now. All right. Now, if you are, everybody has a little creativity in them. All right. So understand that this gift that you have to create, it's a very special gift. And sometimes I think a lot of times we don't really get the full grasp of that art is a very spiritual thing. Now, let's go into it in the spiritual aspect, right? Art is of God because God is an artist. God loves variety, so that's why there's so many different types of things that you see, variations in plants and people, rocks, everything around you is art. Art is about problem solving, but art is the thing that drives this society forward. So if there's a suppression of the creative ability, then society's going to perish. There's this MC that I love so much. He's from New Orleans. His name is J Electronica. I don't know if you ever heard him. One of the things that he always says is that without vision, people will perish. So if there's no creative vision, what's going to happen? Anybody? If there's no creative vision, what's going to happen? I feel like I'm back in class again when I used to teach over here. So doing understanding arts. So somebody, anybody, this interactive. This ain't gonna be me talking. I'm gonna be asking you questions. You gonna give me some answers back. All right. All right. Who's the hand? Okay. Yes, sir. We'll never evolve. Anybody else? Okay. Why is art important? All right. Let's piggyback off of that for a second. So you said when people see creativity done by who? Done by humans, right? Okay. So how do y'all feel about AI? How do y'all feel about it? I'm gonna tell y'all about me. I'm cooler than the polar bear's toenails. So y'all could go head on. All right. That's some cold. You absolutely right. Very cold feet. So loosen up. All right, loosen up. Remember, all of your artists, because if you're doing this, guess what you're gonna have to do? Same thing I'm doing. You have to talk about it. People gonna ask you questions. They're gonna question you about your work. They're gonna test you. Your peers will test you in critiques. You'll have to have your stuff together. You have to be able to talk about your work. What does it mean? What kind of problems did you have? How did the work challenge you? How did the work speak to you? And how would that work push you forward in your own evolution to be a better individual? And what will you bring individually to make our society better? Because right now, we in a blender right now in the US right now, right? Y'all see what's going on? So if there's a suppression of knowledge, if they're trying to suppress your voice, they're trying to suppress your knowledge, what's gonna be next? The arts, they coming for the arts. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I ain't having that. I'm gonna go out. I'm going to die for mine. Art is what moves me. I'm always constantly thinking about something creative. My head has always been in the clouds, even when I was a kid. You know, just my own imagination out in the yard, Star Wars characters just going crazy. Pew, pew, pew. My dad, who's an artist, my late mother was also an educator and a singer, and they both graduated from Southern in 73. I was born in 1973. One thing I could say about my father, and here's his works right here. So these two black and whites right here is my dad's works. And there's another one right up there. So when my father was here, he was taught by Mr. Frank Hayden, worked with Professor Hubbard. But one thing about my dad, my late father, he never sat me down and just taught me. He never sat me down and said, son, this is how you do it, this is how you do it. That was not the case. How I learned from my dad was that I watched him. He was always working, constantly doing something. And it drove my mom to a point to where later on down the line, we have these deep conversations over wine. And she would tell me how, like, at one point, my father had stopped working on his art. And this was right before she passed. And we were talking over some wine. And we were laughing. And she said, you know, I really wish that your dad would pick up his work again, do his work again. And I said, well, he might, you know what I'm saying? And she was like, because when he was younger, I always harassed him because I wanted to spend more time with him. I said, well, that's, you know, that's the nature of ladies. You know, you want to spend time with your spouse and stuff like that. But I think, you know, it was funny just hearing my mom say that in her maturity, you know, as a woman and as a wife, that she understood the importance of what made my father very, very special, and those things that she saw in him that made him special. But my grandfather was a merchant marine, so he always traveled around the world. He brought artifacts from every country. So I was surrounded by art at a young age, and our house looked like a museum. And sometimes I used to hate it because I'd tell my dad and my mom, why we can't have a normal house? Got all this artwork all over the place, all these African masks, all this stuff from Asia, everything. But later on down the line, I learned to really, really appreciate it. And then my dad would paint murals around the house, abstract murals around the house on the walls. My friends loved it. But it just took me some time to getting used to and understand the specialness of his work. So there was a period, they indulged my senses in every aspect with art. I love comic books, you know. I love the early forms of anime in the late 70s. First anime I ever seen was Speed Racer. And it just kind of gradually, you know, kind of went on. My aunt lived in LA, so she would bring me back books from Little Tokyo that I couldn't read, mangas like Dragon Ball when Goku was small, all types of stuff. But I would take this information, even though I couldn't read it, I was taking it and I was studying all the drawings, studying the perspective, studying backgrounds. And my skills might not have been there yet as a young child, but I was always surrounded by these images. I was always asking my parents to take me to the movies, to see certain movies, Star Wars, whatever came out that was just crazy and weird. I was going to see it. And I had some stuff that I probably shouldn't have been seeing. I was sneaking in the theater to go see it. But the point I'm trying to make is that I was surrounded by it. And they just put me in art classes during the summer and just let me evolve and let that love and that passion build up for it. I didn't know exactly in what areas that I was gonna do art, but I knew after trying out sports and doing all these different things that art was my thing. That was me. That was the thing that made me special. That was the thing that was gonna move me to my purpose. But in this place right here that you're in now is where I learned about knowledge of self as an artist. I learned so much from all my professors here, from Mr. Robert Cox, Addie Dawson Yuba, Professor Payton. Mr. Henry was my painting teacher. I learned the importance and the beauty of our people. And that's something that I wasn't taught in school or in my art classes here. Not at Southern, but in high school, middle school. I wasn't taught that. And I got that love and understanding about our people. And once I had that knowledge of self and understanding, I just took off with it. So there was a period in time, like I said, I didn't come up in the internet age. I came up during print media and things when media was scheduled out to where you could see certain things. So in my interest in doing comic books and anime and manga, that stuff wasn't even like readily available like at Barnes and Nobles and all these places that you have now. So I had to figure out on my own how to make these individuals look like black folks. And there were no references to that. So I had to do it and discover it and figure it out on my own. So that went on for a couple of years. Eventually, when I graduated in the summer of 2000, I taught for a little bit, figured out, man, this ain't what it is right now. I said, these kids are losing their mind. I said, no, this ain't for me right now. So I decided to go to grad school, but I had to figure out where I was going to go. I looked at LSU, but then I was like, I don't feel like taking the GRE and doing all these tests, that's over and done with. But one of my friends was in filmmaking at the Savannah College of Art and Design. And he gave me some information about the department. I saw that they had illustration. I saw that they had sequential art, comic book work. And I'm like, I'm looking, and I called them up. I'm like, man, can I ask you something? They're like, yeah. I said, you get a master's degree in comic book art? They said, yes, you can. I said, okay. Do I have to take the GRE to get? Nope. I'm there. I just got to figure out how to get there. So when I went there, and I finally got there, I was supposed to leave the week of Hurricane Katrina, but Hurricane Katrina happened, and I had to wait a week or so, and then me and my father drove down there. So I spent 2.5 years, almost 3 years in Savannah. I started out in illustration, but my real love was in sequential art, comic book work, conceptual design. Started off in illustration, was doing great. The only thing with illustration was that they were trying to change up my line work and my pen and ink work. And it was too cartoony or more comic book style. And they wanted to break it down, wanted me to try some different things and break it down. But when I took some elective classes in the sequential department in conceptual design and comic book work, they were asking me why wasn't I over there? And this is where everything kind of changed for me. And I thank my mother for that so much. And I'll never forget it. It was a Sunday. I went to church. I was sitting in the parking lot and I was thinking about transferring. And I called her. And I was like, Mom, what you doing? She's like, nothing. She said, what you doing? I said, I'm sitting in the parking lot at church. She said, whoa, I'm glad you're going to church. And I said, yeah, I mean, I'm out here. So one of the things I told her, I said, Mom, I'm thinking about transferring to another department, switching my major. And she was like, to what? And I told her, to comic books, to sequential, animation, conceptual design. And I said, well, I'm just trying to get what you think. And my mother told me this. She said, Nathaniel, do what makes you happy. I was like, okay. I did that. And that's whenever I shot into my purpose and everything started falling together. I can tell you it was probably one of the happiest times I've ever been in school. I was surrounded by individuals that did love the exact same thing that I loved. And I was meeting editors, I was meeting animation directors and all the video game people, everything was just falling into place. And graduated grad school with a 4.0. I had to ended up staying like a year later than I should. And I was trying to find a job out there, but I couldn't find a job. So my mother was still in the school system here in Louisiana. So they were looking for art teachers. It seemed like all the schools were looking for art teachers. So I ended up moving back to Louisiana and I started back teaching middle school art. And eventually, later on down the line, I got on here as an adjunct professor. And that was one of my dreams also, to come back and teach in the department where I studied in undergrad, because this is where it all started. And I've always wanted to come back in some type of capacity and be able to teach here. And I got that opportunity. When COVID had hit, a year before that, my father had suffered he had suffered a stroke. But before he had the stroke, My mom passed in 2011, and one of the last things that she told him was to start doing his artwork again. So those black and white pieces that you see on the wall right there, from 2014 to when he passed a year ago, not this January, last January, there's probably, well, what, Keith, about what, 3,000 pieces of those? 3,000 pieces of work, black and white. The left side of my dad was kind of, weird because of the stroke, but he worked on a piece of art every day, every day. And even after he had his stroke, he just got himself together and was still creating. Wouldn't stop, wouldn't stop, wouldn't stop. Kept creating. I would go there sometimes and see him working, and it would just drive me mad because I'm very, in a way, I'm competitive, but also it inspired me. And I wouldn't stay too long because he'll show me like 5 or 6 different pieces of work. I'll look at it, we'll talk for a bit. I said, all right, I gotta go. He said, but where you going? I said, I'm about to get to work. I said, because you working. And I'm like, and I'm writing now as far as I know, I'm healthy. But shoot, if you in this condition and you doing that, I got to get on the ball. I'm behind. I would say this about my father, and he reached to a point, and we never had a chance to talk about it on that level where we got this deep with it. But his work, he reached the pinnacle where he was one with heaven and earth with his work. It was like he just could not stop, and there was just no lag in his creativity and his imagination and his work ethic and his design sense. And out of those like 3,000 something pieces that we looked at, and it's probably more because we sold some and he's given a lot away also as well. None of them look the same at all. They're all different. It's crazy. And that's one of the things that I said, you know what? I'm going to strive for that as myself as an artist, to reach that point, to reach that pinnacle, and to reach that spiritual understanding of this is where it could go. So I don't look at it at this point in time, I don't look at it as if I made it. I will always want to be able to evolve, keep evolving, keep growing. And as long as I can physically do it, see where it takes me. But also at the same time, you get to a point with your art where you might hit a brick wall and there's time for a change. So I was doing a lot of Afrofuturism, and it was almost like I was creating my own anime style characters with my work and adding elements like my father had in his, and creating these beings. And a lot of it was in black and white. And I started working with my business partner and my best friend, Kedrick Alford, and we started computer coloring them and taking it to a whole nother level. So I will tell you like this. I knew I needed a shift though, because my work started to become cumbersome and it wasn't being fun. And I needed a shift. And lo and behold, see that gentleman right back there? Professor Lean? He came on at Southern, and I might not look it, but I could rap very, very good. So I put out some music, and I asked him, I saw his work, and he had a piece on the wall right over there. I'll never forget it as long as I live. And I asked him, I said, John, can I use that piece for my album cover? And he allowed me to do it. But his work sparked something up in me. I saw freedom in his work. I saw looseness. I saw joy. And that struck a chord in me. And I said, you know what? This is where the change starts. And a lot of times what people don't do while people are alive is give them their flowers. And I said, you know what? I gave this brother a ton of flowers. And I'm going to give them to him again. Because seeing his work had ushered me into a new direction. But also, a lot of times we're scared to do what? Take that step forward. And even if it's a little step, you're still making a difference. It don't have to be a large step, but just a little step. And I started working more abstractly, and I started working more loosely. So these two pieces right here, and he shall come to lead us all, and Dreamweaver and the one right over there, Yoji. During COVID, that's whenever I started to make a change. So I stopped teaching during COVID. I quit my middle school teaching job and I stopped teaching here. And I'll never forget one night I was up 2 a.m. just painting. And I thought about something. My mom left me a lot of books and she wrote a lot of wise things in these books, Dr. Seuss books, whatever types of books that she bought me. And one at the end of this Dr. Seuss book that she gave me, Oh, the Places That You'll Go, she said, Nathaniel, have a happy life. And that stuck with me so hard. And I contemplated on that till like 5 a.m. and it hit me. And I asked myself a question. Have I been having a happy life or have I just been merely existing in the system? And I honestly looked at myself, I've just been merely existing, playing it safe. And I never took a chance on myself or bet on myself. And I said, you know what? I'm going to bet on myself. And I did. And it wasn't something that I prayed about because, you could pray about it and you put it in God's hands, you just go to sleep. And that's what I did. I didn't dwell on it too much. I didn't ask for much. I just wanted him just like, hey, guide me with this. Show me where to go. This is new. This whole direction is new for me. And a couple of months I was working in. I had a plan for myself, but sometimes there's another plan that he has for you. And I got a call. I think it's like in May or June. I got a call from that gentleman right back there. Didn't know him. He just called me, contacted me out the blue. And he's my curator and my business partner. And that's one of the best things that's happened for me as an artist, to find someone with some integrity and also the same creative drive that you have, relentless, that will bet his life on what he does, the same way that I do. We talked and we planned a solo show, and I wasn't planning on showing any old stuff. He just started digging, being nosy, going through my art blogs. He's like, hey, man, what's all these skateboards and all this other stuff? I said, nah, it's old stuff. He said, nah. He said, but I never seen it. A whole lot of other people never seen it. So that show, we ended up almost having like 50 pieces of work. But one thing I had to learn, and this is all artists, I think we all need to learn this. It's like I had to drop the ego and understand about dropping the ego. Sometimes we want to control everything, especially when you work by yourself for so much and for so long, you want to control everything. And I'll never forget the first time we were setting up my show, and I had these 2 skateboards that I painted. It was a diptych. And the theme was it's a man and a woman who are in love, but they were on distant planets, but they were still in love and they were still trying to keep their relationship together. And I always kept those pieces together. But him and his partner suggested that we separate them, put one on one end of the wall, one on the other. At first, I was against it, and I was trying to rail against it in a very polite way. But then something had came over me. Just a little still voice that said, let it be. And when I let it be, and I understood the concept that they were doing creatively with the work, it made more sense to have them separated on the walls. After that, I took my hands off of it. I said, look here, y'all hang this show however you want. Hang it however you want, because I understand now that y'all have my best interests in mind. And everything went so well and so smooth. But one thing I tell you, you have to drop the ego. One thing that he does is he lets me be great. He doesn't tell me what to draw or whatever like that. I do whatever I want to do. But he also brings to the table his side of the creative process, not just as a business partner, but he understands art and he understands how everything works. What I'm getting at is that sometimes you don't have to pray for what you need, that it'll be provided for you if you do what? Step out on faith. Step out on faith. Jump into your process. Step out on faith with it. And then your needs will be supplied. Because like I said, I wasn't getting on my knees praying, oh, I need a business partner. I ain't never asked for none of that at all. I just stepped out on faith into my purpose, my God-given purpose that he put inside of me, and that's creativity. The same creativity that's in each and every one of you sitting up in here, from students to professors or to anybody that's up in here. The same creativity, because he does what we do. He just did it on a different level. But he's blessed us with the same ability that he has to create, to shape societies, to provide vision and inspiration to people. As much as people worry about artificial intelligence, AI will never overtake the human curiosity, ever. Don't get caught up in all this foolishness. Don't get caught up in the hype and everything that's going on. Dig deep inside yourselves and figure out what your passion is. And if you're doing art, why are you doing it? Do you love it? Because if you love it, you're going to work hard for it. If you love it, you're going to make sacrifices for it. If you love it, you'll die for it. It's your voice. Each of you have a voice up in here that's going to make this society great and push it forward. But it's only going to happen, like I said, if you step out and do what you need to do and believe. But also, you got to put in the work. No choice and no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There are times I don't go out with my friends because I have a project that's going on. So we like to stay at least about a year or two ahead with projects. So sometimes I might be finished with a project that's due that we're going to release in 2026. I might be finished with it 2 years early. It's just sitting waiting and organically waiting for the right time till we have the perfect marketing plan and concept to put the work out there. But you got to put in the work. You can't be scared to make mistakes. Make as many mistakes as you can right now. Because guess what? I'm still making mistakes right now. I'm still making mistakes. I tell this to my students. I still make mistakes. I still have to problem solve. I still have to figure this stuff out. But I enjoy it. Because each obstacle that I overcome, I know that I'm evolving into something better than I was before. And if you're frustrated about your work, and you feel like you're not moving ahead or you're stuck, you know what that is? That's mediocrity leaving your body because you're not settling anymore. You're not settling. So when you get frustrated, don't look at it as like something that's just keeping you down. Look at it as being mediocre, just leaving you. And that you're pushing yourself to become something better than you were an hour ago. So when these professors challenge you, don't be afraid of the challenge. Accept it. Embrace it and figure it out. There's been a lot of times, I had to sit out in that hallway and draw that hallway, every brick on there in one point perspective. But also while you're here, do one thing too. Make bonds. Make bonds with the people in your classroom. Because you never know who you're going to need later on down the line. You don't know where that person sitting next to you, where they're going to be. So always treat your classmates and stuff with respect. But also make bonds, make friendships. Talk to them. Don't just come to class sitting down, putting your head down in your work. Talk to people in class. Turn that class into your own joyful experience. You have to take advantage of it. It's only so much the professor going to provide for you. You have to make the situation what it is. It's as simple as that. So there's no excuses for anything at all. Get up, do the work, and also, you know what? Study. Study history. Study the artists that came before you. Don't just look on Instagram looking at who's hot and what they're doing. Everybody copying Basquiat and all this other foolishness. Don't look on Instagram for your inspiration. Study the masters. Ask your professors questions. Look at their work. Inquire. Study the masters. Study the past. They didn't have all this stuff that we have now. They have no internet. They ain't have all this stuff. If you want to learn mural art, you had to go to Mexico and study under the masters. You had to go to these places and have an experience and stay there for a bit. You just wasn't going on YouTube looking at no video. So don't discredit the power of something that's old. Cause I know sometimes, I know how I get it. I've been teaching for a while. Kids be oh, I like nothing old. Don't like old people, old cars, old nothing. Don't discredit that. Study the masters. Go look at art. Just don't look at it on your phone. Go to a gallery. Go to a museum. And figure out where they have creative things that are showing in the place that you live. Go to them. Meet people. Talk to them. Don't be scared. Don't be in your own little bubble. Talk to people. Get some different experiences. That's the only way that you're going to grow. And that's one of the ways that you'll learn to respect and to embrace others. With that being said, I just want you guys to really, really, really understand the gravitas of your gift. Don't take it for granted because it can easily be taken away from you. Because I've seen it happen too many times. Your art's going to evolve. You might start off doing one thing and then you're branching off into another. But then you're meeting people, you're going to different things. You might have started off doing cartoons. Oh, now you're doing fashion design. I'm painting on clothes doing fashion design. We had, 3 fashion shows already that we partnered with Banana Republic, where we had art and fashion. And I was painting clothes. I never thought I would be painting clothes. But I had an interest in it. I love architecture. I love the mixture of the old. I love modern. I love brutalistic. I love it. I love things that's going to, put me in a situation where I don't know something. And that's when I'm going to just fall in love even more because I don't know. Don't put me in a situation where I know. Put me in something that I don't know. So now I'm excited because I have a new skill to master. That's exciting to me, to master a new skill. And have a goal for yourself. Have a goal for yourself. Even if start off small little goals, and then work on to your big one. Everything ain't gonna come quick. I know y'all like it quick. I know you want things to happen quick. I know some of y'all want to be rich young. They got, all this different things. I have a nephew y'all's age, so we constantly talking. He's in college. We constantly talking. And I have students, younger students, high school students, middle school. I'm always talking to my kids. So I get it. I know what's going on. I'm not, I'm not old and just push everything away. I'm in the mix anyway. So I understand what you guys are going through. But also at the same time, put them doggone phones up. Cut them off. Cut the music off. Get in a quiet place and work in a quiet place at times and watch what happens. That's whenever you're going to start seeing a change in your work. Because now you have no distractions going on. You have nothing that's going to cloud your mind. That sword that you're swinging, your art sword, is going to be sharp, that it can cut through a rock. So stay on top of your game. Treat the people around you with love and respect. Don't compromise your morals for nothing. All money ain't good money. Don't let nobody put you in no compromising position that you shouldn't be in. Be patient with the people that you deal with. Study them. Know their moves. Watch how they think, how they move. Watch their actions, how they treat people. Watch how they do business. Watch how they do business. Are they uplifting the people that they helping? Or are they filling their own pockets? Get with people that's knowledgeable about how this art works, dealing with the art world, with the percentages that certain galleries take off your work. All these things matter. You guys have more information at your fingertips than I know I ever had at your age. Take advantage of it. Just don't be on Instagram scrolling through, watching people get it, getting crunk and all that foolishness. Understand how the algorithms work, because people's attention spans are so short. Understand how these systems work, because now everything is set up for you as an artist or an individual that's trying to sell a product. It's set up to where they don't want you to connect with your target audience. Get you a website. You don't know how to do one, find somebody that can help you. Direct all your information to your website, your central website. Keep it updated. Create. Creation should be on your mind 24/7 in some type of way. Everything's going to work out for you. It's not going to be the way that you want it to be. It's going to be the way that it's destined to be. Everything's going to come for you. If you do what you need to be doing, it's going to come for you at the right place, at the right time. You're going to be with the right person. And guess what? You're going to put out the right message with your work. Does anybody have any questions for me? Don't be scared. You better ask. Yes, sir. Well, I rapped for about 20 years. I was in the hip hop rock band when I was at Southern. Mr. Henry could tell you. I used to have to get sign off to go do shows. I was in the rap rock band for 20. I rapped for about 20 something years. And the same principles in the visual arts apply in the musical arts, especially on the business side. Same principles apply. It's just a different board game, but the same rules and the same principles apply. So, what kind of music you do? What you do? Okay. There's so many things that you can do with that. You know what's big right now? Soundtracks. Doing music for video games and movies. That's a real big industry right now. If you're a music producer, I mean, one of my favorite artists, 9 Inch Nails, Trent Reznor, and Atticus Ross, they're doing nothing but soundtracks for movies and video games. They're almost becoming like Hans Zimmer. There's so many different directions you can go with your music. But also at the same time, like I tell you, study the masters. Study who came before you. You're listening to jazz, go back and listen to some Miles Davis. Go back and listen to all that stuff in the past. Get it on vinyl. Get you a record player. Get it on vinyl. Listen to it like that. That's the best. I'm going to tell you from experience. I'm going to tell you like this. I'm going to go out there and get it. You might see me laughing and kikiing and laughing, having a good time, but when it comes down to it, I'm going to get it. My inspiration first starts off a lot of times by, okay, let's say now, in this era that I'm in now. You wouldn't believe where I get the inspiration from. Rocks. So, make you laugh. So, I have a thing, right? I'll go to Walmart and I'll go into the parking lot where they got the rocks? I'll go through there and steal rocks out of there. But, all right, so check it out. Here's the thing. Here's a learning moment for you. Some of the best abstract art is in nature. You put the obvious before most people, they're going to overlook it. But I got a lot for this piece, rocks. And actually, the Walmart rocks, the color patterns, the texture. I mean, I was stealing rocks from Walmart. Cortana Walmart. Yeah, so Cortana and Central got the best rocks. I'm not gonna lie. Some of the other ones, but a lot of the best abstract art is in nature. But how this piece came about, just movement and flow. I'm always telling Kedrick about when I'm working abstractly, it's all about my range of movement. And it's all about the flow. Bruce Lee said this, like, be like water. And, I try to take those concepts and put those in how I approach the work. So there's been a lot of times when I work abstractly like this, and where I work in general, if the flow ain't there, I'll trash the piece. I have no problem with trashing it. I don't put it to the side because I don't want to get tempted to look at it and try to go back and work with it. I just trash it. Throw it in the dumpster outside. I make sure I throw it in a dumpster outside my place. So I won't go in my trash can in the house and be like trying to salvage it. I knew that it needed some eyes, so I put those two little dots right there, the blue, for the eyes, and it just became this godlike being to me. Like if I was just out in space somewhere, or you just happen to be in space, you see this entity just like surround. You ever look through the Hubble? You ever seen pictures from the Hubble telescope? I don't know if you have, but y'all should. It's some awesome stuff. So the Hubble telescope takes these pictures of all this nebulas and all this beautiful stuff, and it's basically art. You looking at it, it's right there. It's showing you what it is. It's art. And I'm looking at this stuff and I'm like, man, this is what it is. But I have a love for fantasy. I have a love for science fiction. I grew up on these things. I love, all types of like movies from Spielberg and George Lucas and Stanley Kubrick. I watch all these things and I've digested and viewed so much information from a child on to how I am now. I love movies, but I'm watching a lot of going back watching a lot of older movies. And I also have a fascination with like Asian films. They always push the envelope conceptually. To me right now, the Koreans make some of the best movies. Also, they make some of the best revenge movies. Let me tell you, do not anger a Korean person. I'm like, man, because they will mess over you for real. Like some of those movies are I'm like, man, how do they think of this stuff? But visually and compositionally, how they shoot their movies, and the actors are so serious. Like, man, they are just on point. If they had our special effects, they will run it. No questions asked. They will run it. They have it all together. South Korea is on a whole nother level when it comes to filmmaking to me. Um, I've studied, I watched a lot of French films. And, back in the day in the 90s, we had Blockbuster Video. And I used to be in the international section all the time, just trying to find the weirdest stuff that I could find. Anything that was gonna, push me to a whole nother level conceptually and visually without me taking drugs. And I had a lot of artist friends when I was in school that, not so much here, but artist friends that I was hanging out with in the 90s, they were taking drugs and creating art. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be dependent on no type of drug creating. And also, my imagination is already active now, sober. So I'm like, man, I don't know what that stuff gonna do if I take it. Might push me to a whole nother point. So I would watch all these different films, subtitle. I don't care. I'm reading, going through, watching it. I'm a master watching and reading, watching all these different films, getting different books from different countries. I was in the Southern Library always when the internet first popped off and it was moving on dial-up over there in the library. I was always searching, discovering. And it was exciting to me to find new things from other places, other countries. And also, like I say, going back to asking these questions, ask us questions now because a lot of artists, they weren't giving out information unless they were your professor, or if you kind of knew them really cool. They wasn't giving out tips and all that stuff like that. They was keeping everything close to the vest. So when artists first started giving out information, especially in the comic book industry on technique and stuff like that, that was like a pretty rare thing. So I just latched on to it and I just started buying all types of different tools, just trying dip pens, all types of anything, brushes, doing whatever, just seeing what everything could do. But this way of working was really like a challenge for me. And like I said, I got inspired from John's work using different tools, using screen printing, squeegees, and all these different things. I'm fascinated with texture also. I love texture. But I also want my work to feel very otherworldly. And I want you to be able to, when you look at it, to just really study it and to be drawn into it. Because you're going to see some things that probably didn't intend for you to see in the work. So how the work speaks to me, it's going to speak to you differently. And that's what makes it more interesting for me to see how the work spoke to you and how you interpret it. Not so much of how I interpreted the work, but how the work spoke to you and you interpreted the work. That's more exciting and fascinating to me. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. I ended up taking the long side of the mountain, and I'm still climbing. But my my path to getting where I wasn't always so smooth. And I keep it 100% real with you. So my senior year in high school, I ended up failing geometry because I had just a whack geometry teacher. So in graduation, if you had to go to summer school, you could still, they still let you walk, but they'll give you a fake diploma. And, you got to go to summer school. When I got that fake diploma and I had to go to summer school, that did something to me mentally. It shot my confidence and I didn't even realize it. So I kind of played around for a bit, trying to figure things out. And went to summer school. And what's funny was that my summer school teacher was a high school football coach from Santa Mar. And he was country as all outdoors. But I tell you what, probably the best geometry teacher I ever had, because it taught me something on even how I approach teaching. Break it down into its simplest form and do it the best, most effective way possible. I'm not going to give you 50 million and one ways to do it. I'm going to give you the most effective way to approach it and do it. But by the time I got here to Southern, I had to take some, I don't know, I forgot what those classes are called. I couldn't get into my real English class. It was like I had to take this other English and all this stuff like that. But by the time I got into my department, that's whenever things started to change. Luckily, I surrounded myself with individuals that was like me. So my friends, we all into hip hop. And at the time in the 90s here, what was so cool about Southern in the 90s was that if you were from out of town, everybody had a different flavor. So the Baton Rouge kids looked a certain way, the LA kids looked a certain way, the New York kids acted and looked a certain way, so Chicago and all this stuff like that. So it was cool because you was meeting all these different people and everybody had different slang and you was learning. It was just such an exciting time. We wasn't all connected like everybody's connected with the internet and stuff like that now. So everything wasn't one big melting pot where everybody's speaking and dressing the same thing. So I was getting all this visual information, but also the friends that I was surrounded with, we were all into the same thing. We were all into music. We was all into art. Now, going back to keeping it safe, when I went to grad school at SCAD, I wanted to go into the comic book department, but I felt like, man, that sound, people gonna laugh. I thought about, man, people gonna laugh. Oh, you got a master's degree in comic book art, blah, 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 and conceptual art and all this. So I jumped into illustration first because that sounded more respectable, right? So even though I did well, straight A's, did well, but it was something was missing. Something was missing. And also they were trying to change me. But when I took those elective classes in the sequential department and I was going to class excited, because my conceptual art teacher, Paul Hudson, he worked on movies like, he was like a modern day Michelangelo and worked on different types of movies, and like we'd look at stills from Blade Runner, all these other different movies. I'd be excited. I'm going crazy in class. But they all asked me, Mr. Landry, why aren't you here? And I thought to myself, well, y'all, why I'm not here? And that's whenever I talked to my mom about transferring. Later on down the line, I just decided that, you know what? I'm just going to stick to my guns and just do it. Everybody always hits this stuff about, oh, this is a safe job. Or, I have this struggle with my students now in high school, especially because they're programmed. They can be they're so talented in art, but society is programming them to where they're thinking that, that they can't make it as an artist. See, there's this old saying back in the day, and Mr. Henry and them could tell you, this thing called a starving artist. Man, I'm from Louisiana. I ain't never starved in my life. You know how we like to eat down here. So, I ain't never, I never adopted that and embraced that mentality about it. And true enough, I had some associates who would say like, oh man, you can't do that. You ain't gonna make no money doing that. You're not gonna have a career doing that. And I'm like, okay, but I'm seeing these comic book artists in the 90s like Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld making hand over fist doing comic book work. So somebody lying. So if I'm seeing the picture, at with these guys at a convention with holding up $2,000 in cash in their hand, and they got about hundreds of people surrounding their table trying to buy their artwork, I might look kind of funny, but I ain't no fool. So I'm like, okay, nah, evidently you can. So I've never been a point to where like I was a starving artist or nothing like that. They will tell you that you cannot make it in this field. They're lying and the truth is not in them. Every professor that you see here, they've made it. I've made it. And it's not to the point people get this whole thing about being famous and all this stuff like that and popular, like that's when you made it. No. When you're able to do what you love and you be able to pay your bills doing it, you made it. Now it's just time to take it to another level. And gradually you'll start going up even further. But it's just as hard to get to be an architect. It's just as hard to be a doctor. There's no guarantee in those jobs. No guarantee whatsoever. I got cousins. I got a cousin in the medical field. She was top doctor in Washington, D.C. for 3 years in a row at one point. And it was tough for her. As a black woman, it was tough for her. So everything is not going to come for all people think like you go into this field that you're going to get a job automatically. Nah, it don't work like that. But I will tell you this. You're a creative individual, right? Let's just say, for instance, you jump into another field. You don't go into like the arts like how we do, but you jump into another field. Guess what you're going to have an advantage of that they don't have? You're going to be able to problem solve quicker. You're going to be able to think outside the box. You're going to be able to be creative in that field to where you're going to leave them in the dust because they don't have the skill set that you have. They're not going to have that tenacity. Or whenever trouble comes, because when we're artists, the trouble gonna come. We got to figure this stuff out. It's never gonna go all the way smooth. You're gonna have that inside of you. Don't let nobody tell y'all that y'all can't do it. Don't let nobody tell you. Don't get wrapped up in the fascination that you see on Instagram with all this, where people look like they just got it all together. Because a lot of times that's just a charade. That's not real. They're not showing you everything. If you can like I said, if you can pay your bills doing what you love, you'd have made it. Nobody can take that away from you at all. But you got to go after it. You got to go after it. You got to want it like you've never wanted something before in your life. And sometimes I'll be honest with you. Sometimes you might have to be by yourself. You might not have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. They might not understand what you do. They're not going to, sometimes people don't understand the passion. They don't understand the drive. Sometimes you might find somebody that will. But sometimes, a lot of times, it's not. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. What we do, fortunately, and for some people's eyes, and in some people's eyes, unfortunately, what we do is a lonely job. But there's so much satisfaction in it whenever you get something done. And it's so much satisfaction when you see your work on these walls. And it's even more satisfaction whenever you have people willing to either buy your original, if you're willing to sell it, or buy your prints of your work. Now you're going to start seeing that all the naysayers and all that outside noise don't really mean nothing. So in this time, I was just like y'all. In this time in school, this is where your test is. Think about your concepts. Think about what you want to do. Think about your concepts. Because your professors are here to guide you. They're not here to think for you. Get in the habit of thinking for yourself. Figuring out what it is. Why do you love this so much? Or if you do, sometimes you might not love it. But why do you love it? What do you love drawing or creating? I don't care if you like just doing flowers. If that's what you want to do, then you be the best flower painter or illustrator that ever was that stepped off of this campus. Draw what you love. And the evolution is going to come afterwards. It'll come. And also this, don't be a jack of all trades. Master at least one of these mediums. Master it. For me, it was pen and ink. I did that for 20 years before I jumped into color. When I really seriously started jumping into color. I did black and white, pen and ink. Mastered it. Studied it. Looked at artists that I read so much Japanese manga in black and white, it was just ridiculous. I was seeing things in black and white. That's why it was hard for me when I started jumping into color. I had to figure that out because I didn't know what colors that I love and what I was attracted to. But I eventually found out. Teaching will have you, the stressful teaching sometimes will have you'll get your mind right. And I realized that I was attracted to more pastel and soft colors because they made me, they de-stressed me. So you have to figure out what it is that you love. And don't be embarrassed by it. Don't be ashamed. And don't forsake the gifts that you have. And that's, how old are you? May I ask? 22. So y'all in this stage in a way that y'all kind of still, and this is not a knock on y'all, nothing, because I understand I've been through the same thing. Y'all still kind of care what people say in certain ways. So don't worry about that. Let people talk. You ain't got to even respond to them. Move in silence. Move in silence. You ain't got to respond to everything. You ain't got to give your opinion about everything. Let your work speak. See, a lot of people, everybody's talking now. Everybody got a podcast. Everybody's talking right about now. Everybody talk. Everybody want to talk. Everybody got an opinion. Everybody want to talk. Everybody want to sound right. Everybody wants to be right. But talking to me is overrated now because that's how everybody's doing is talking, but ain't no progress happening. So use your work. Let that work be your voice. Whatever you do, like I said, I don't know what each of you do or whatever it is that you do, but let your work speak for you. You ain't got to say nothing. You save your voice. You save that energy that you're going to put in going back and forth and debating with people and all that stuff like that. Save that energy for you and for your creativity. Save it for that. And just always remember, guys, put yourself in a peaceful, make sure that you're taking care of yourselves. Make sure you have moments for yourselves. Peace. Figure some things out. Get some direction. Plan, create. Get away from the noise. You got to have that time for yourself. There's a lot of times when I come home, the only person I talk to, if it's not my sister, I'm talking to my business partner. And after that, he tell you, I cut off my phone, cut the ring off. I might have a ton of messages on my phone. Where you at? What you doing? What you doing? Want to go out? Want to do this? But I'm thinking about the next project that we got. I'm thinking about how hard he's working, talking to different people, different sponsors, and different things to happen to make it work, make what we do work. And I say, you know what? I got to stay on top of what I'm doing. And I'm thinking about all the individuals, my family, my nephews, my students, who are all looking up to me and seeing the things that I'm doing. I say, man, I got to keep this up. And sometimes it could feel like a burden. It could feel heavy. But we got strong shoulders. All of you got strong shoulders and strong arms. And you got strong minds. You can handle it. If your great-grandmothers and your ancestors and our ancestors, they can handle it in the worst situations that they had, then this should be child's play for us. You can handle it. Don't give up on yourselves. Don't give up on your dreams. Don't become a cog in the machine. But thank y'all. Y'all go ahead. Appreciate you.